Hey everybody, welcome to another Brilliant Wonders podcast. I'm your host, Josi Jenson, and I'm just so excited that you're here. You know, we have had one of the best winters that I remember, and I'm just so thankful for it because last winter I had disappeared. I had went to the other side of the country, or the world, other side of the world. So it's been fun being back here for this winter and just experiencing all the things and all the seasons. Okay, so I was a ranch kid. Many of you guys know that, where it was very common to, be riding horse out in the pasture, driving out in the pasture, and you'd see like this one path, this very like worn path of animals, deer maybe, or definitely cows. Like a lot of times it was cows, and it was this one path that it even had like twists and turns in it. It wasn't always just completely straight. It was like this little path that would like lead up over a hill or down into a valley. It was like the same path that these animals would take over and over again. And in order to make that path, it had to be really worn to the point that that it was no question on how they would go. Let's say to go drink their water, the cows would follow each other and try to get in a path, and they'd be in a line, and they'd all make it to the water, the water tank. And as riders, the same thing. We'd ride horse, and we may just hop on one of those paths, on those well paved, well worn paths, and our horse would just go along that path, and we'd end up, on the other side of the pasture. And these little pathways were like this network through an entire pasture, and it was just the route that cows oftentimes would do, especially when they're on autopilot. I'm thirsty, I'm gonna go get some water, and on its way it found the path and it ended up at the watering hole. Okay, that is so metaphorically correct when it comes to our brains. And the autopilot is part of that. The safety in its route is part of that. And when we go and we start messing around and start to change something or think a different way or do something different, maybe for example, like using our left hand to brush our teeth, or something just out of the norm, our brain's like, I don't know how to do this. And if you YouTube it, there's some great graphics of how the cells in our brain connect. Like, it's called a synapse, how they connect with another cell, and it creates these pathways. And it's so interesting that the first time that our brain cell like receives some different information, it kind of like vibrates and then nothing happens, right? And the second time you do it again, let's use the left-handed teeth brushing, for example. You kind of like shake that cell again. It's like, this is new, and nothing really happens, okay? Well, over time, if you continue it, it's kind of like these cells look like stars. They actually look like stars. And on the tips of the stars, there's like this long arm, and it will go ahead and connect to another cell when it's ready to send a message and create a neural pathway. But the first time that you like put some new information on the cell, it doesn't do a lot. It vibrates. It's like there's some impulse there, but it doesn't necessarily connect. And what we want to see when we are making change, like doing something to change our brain, we want it to connect faster, because what that means is once it connects with this new way, it's easier for it to connect over and over again. If you were to look at those neural pathways under the microscope, and you're looking at that cell, and it's like, okay, today I'm brushing with my right hand, instantly that arm goes and grabs the next cell, and it's very fast and in an instant, and it's automatic, and you do it, and you know how to do it, and your brain knows how to do it, then your body knows how to do it, da 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 da. When you use your left hand, and your brain's like, I don't know this information, and over time it starts to figure it out, and then it connects, that repetition, that increased perception of something new, it eventually connects, and it may take some time. It's slow. It might not be as fast or as coordinated as you are when you're brushing your teeth with your left hand. It's not as coordinated. And when it finally attaches and attaches over and over again, they say brush your teeth twice a day, right? As you get better and better at it, it becomes faster and faster. And then that becomes a very fast connection. And the change then it's then. Well, have you ever had a time where you just like finally broke through with something? For example, maybe thinking back to when you were a kid and playing sports, or you started something new. You started public speaking, and it was really rough in the beginning, and it eventually became easier and easier and easier as you practiced. This is the exact same thing. So you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's not true, right? We can teach an old dog new tricks. Your brain is always changing. It's something I've never understood. Like, even when I was going through school and stuff, we'd talk about the brain and how it doesn't adapt well, and that brain cells just, they die, and they, like, it's like this brain could never be changed, is how way back 15, 20 years ago, they were talking about the brain. And now we know that it's so adaptive and it can change. And I had this seminar one time, and it was so cool because I had already been studying brain-based chiropractic for a while. But this doc came in, and he had been doing it for much longer than I had. And he showed us this picture of what happened to the brain cells when you start inputting new information on it, and how these connections start happening. When he was working on a patient that had a stroke, and obviously this is a big concern. He didn't have, I can't remember which side of his body he didn't have control over. But either way, it was one side of his body that was really, really off. And he talked about this and the repetition, and he would work on, bending arms, stimulating the left side of the brain to, get motor skills into the right, because it crosses. And that's just a little tidbit of information. It crosses. So anyway, he was working so much and putting impulses into the nervous system with, all vibration going on his right side, and all the stimuli on this right side. And it took him months, you guys. But eventually this guy healed up in a way. Like, he was able to walk again. There was just some really amazing things, and his quality of life got so much better. But it was over multiple times of saying, hey, synapse, hey, brain cell, like, we're going around the where the stroke was. We're going around the injured area and making new synapses. And he even told the family, he's like, I don't know, guys, like, we haven't made any progress. And you know who had the most confidence in what he was doing is them. And they said, we're going to keep showing up. You keep doing your thing. Like, this is what we're doing. And sure enough, it eventually did work out for him, where his brain did make some new connections and was able to get over how it was always firing. So that brain cell was trying to fire through the injured area, right? And how that would be like, these cows on this path, and then one day the path is completely blocked off to get to the water hole and water tank. I keep saying water hole. It's like I'm in Africa. Anyway, so the water tank. So if you think about it, like, and these cows you would always go this way, and then you take that and you put a barricade up, and they can't go that way anymore, and they have to find another route. So when we're making change, not on this big level necessarily where we have an injury to our brain or something along those lines, but on this level of we are wanting to make a new route because that path is no longer working for us. It would be like there's a pack of wolves on this old path that we used to get, and we'd get bit every time we went. It wasn't serving us well anymore, and we wanted to create a new path. Yes, we would have to start walking on uncommon ground, right? It would be a whole new deal where the grass was still tall, there was shrubs, there was, rocks and these different things that we had to like start making our way around. And then over time, you keep walking that path and walking that path, and you keep going and going, and you find these routes to to make it easier to get to the watering tank, right? To get to your goal, to get whatever you're looking for. But you have to keep working that ground. You have to keep working that path, and eventually it will become a new neural connection. This is a lot of times what's going on when we have, negative thinking, or these subconscious thoughts of like worry and distress and resentment and all these things that we're like, you know what, this stuff is no longer serving us. It is not helping us at all anymore. Yet we continue to keep going down this line where, we have a stimulus of some sort, like, and then we feel like there's something that we have to react to, right? That reaction is a neural path that served us well at one point in our life, and it worked, and it rewarded us, our brain, that it worked to feel that way in order to be safe. But now it's no longer serving us, so we have to create these new neural pathways. And what that is, what I'm talking about is neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity. So what that means is we're creating a brain, we're increasing neuroplasticity, making our brain more adaptable to the changes that we want. And this is what's so cool, you guys, is that this can actually shift. Like, this can actually, our default can be completely different in a matter of time. You just have to give yourself the amount of time and the amount of repetitions of it. What I find people struggle with more and more is like the physical stuff we know. The physical stuff we can see, it's tangible, like what we do, like our doing is so tangible, and it's like, I should not be doing this anymore. And I'm saying should for a reason here. I hate that. That's not a great word, should. But this physical thing that I'm doing all the time is not serving me anymore. But I go to that physical thing when there's something else, when there's a trigger in my brain that causes an emotion that I do not want, and then I go to that, right? I go to the numb. I go to whatever is going to make me feel better. But really the problem is the emotion from the get-go. So we can use our physical world, we can use the habits that we have, we can use the triggers that we have, we can use all of that as information to start creating these new pathways, and and being able to say, my default is no longer this, going through the drive-through. My default is no longer snapping at my kiddos or my husband. My default is no longer to open up the fridge when I am feeling bored, and boredom usually is like a lonely type of thing. I no longer, like, there's some of these things that you are doing in your day-to-day that you can use as information to start shifting your subconscious, shifting your baseline up leveling, you guys, and start creating a new life for yourself through these repetitions of doing the things that may feel awkward. So that's what neuroplasticity is. Neuroplasticity is your adaptability to change your brain, your nervous system in general. Now, one way to let's talk about how to increase this adaptability. Now, this is a big one, because when I was adjusting people at my office, when I adjusted them, I increased neuroplasticity, which is so cool, right? Because then you could imprint good information on your brain. But here's the tricky part, that when you're increasing neuroplasticity, your adaptability to change, right? And you imprint old ways on yourself, you are making that old pattern stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's why it's very critical that when you do these things that I'm going to kind of list to help increase neuroplasticity, that you imprint good information on yourself, that you think differently afterwards, that you move differently afterwards, that you instill these healthy habits or whatever it does, healthy in all the ways, mind, body, spirit, all of those, you instill these good patterns after, because otherwise you are just making that old pathway, that old pattern stronger and stronger and stronger. So it becomes harder and harder to change. So let's talk about ways to increase neuroplasticity. I already said one. Getting adjusted, honestly, is a huge one. I don't even practice chiropractic a lot anymore. I still do, but I don't practice a lot anymore because I'm doing this, teaching, I'm educating, I am creating lifestyle changes for people or helping people through lifestyle changes. But movement is great. Movement, especially movements where you're using both sides of your body. It's not like, an example would be a bicep curl is unilateral. You're going one direction. It's very much one-sided. But doing not both sides at the same time, but crossing your body would be an example. So when you're walking, your cross is going across the body, or you're using both sides of the body in opposite directions. Okay, so it'd be like doing a bicep curl and a tricep extension at the same time. All right, so doing that increases your neuroplasticity. Dancing is a huge one, that you increase your neuroplasticity with that kind of movement. Movements that seem out of the ordinary, right? Like not movements that you would do on an hour-to-hour basis. So doing something different, moving in different ways, really increases neuroplasticity and the ability to change your brain. Starting a new task, like for example, crocheting, start learning something new. I'll just say that. Learning something new increases neuroplasticity. That's why word finds and Sudoku and all these puzzles, right? These puzzles that you're trying to like figure something out. When you do that, you have to get your brain has to open up and start to search for the answer, search for ways to figure it out. I love which I've never done, but I find it would be very fun to do, like the businesses where they're, it's like a treasure box. What am I thinking of right now? Why can't I say it? It's not coming to me. But where there's like all these riddles and things to figure out to get out of the room. I can't remember the name. Anyway, those sorts of like tasks and things that your brain has to like really, shake up and start to figure things out and decipher some information. Learning something new is very, very helpful for the brain to increase that neuroplasticity. Movement, yes, we talked about that. Yeah, those are like doing something new, moving in different ways, and let me check my notes because I'm kind of going off on a tangent and make sure I don't miss anything. Oh, sleeping. Sleeping is also a way that increases neuroplasticity, healthy sleep, okay? Doing it in repetition increases that adaptability for you to change. And yeah, so those are, journaling, writing things down, using opposite, the different hands, walking, paying attention when you walk. Maybe you walk heavier on the right side, switch it to the left. I was in a spinning class a while back, and they were saying pedal with your right foot, then pedal with your left foot, and that's why. It's so good. It's so healthy for the brain to do that and to increase that connection, that I keep saying neuroplasticity, but increasing those synapses, like making different synapses connect with each other out of focus. So yeah, this is all about when you change your brain like that, it's going to be easier for you to change with something else, right? If you continuously do that, your brain is always going to be going, oh, what is she going to do next? Right? What's she going to do next? How's she going to move next? What's she going to think about next? That sort of thing. But when you don't ever do anything different, it's the same track. Same tracks are going hard one direction. So when you are thinking about living an aligned life, living a life that is true to your spirit, true to your soul, like who you are, your truths. When you're wanting to live that way, but yet you just keep drifting back to the old way over and over and over again. You cycle through that all the time. Just know that that's a neural thing. That's a nervous system thing, and your brain is way more likely to change when you start living out of, not in the brain, but in your heart. And I know that sounds very strange, but this is called Heart Math Institute actually has studied this over and over and over again, that when you live out of your heart, it actually starts to shift your brain in a positive way and makes things feel safe. I think about like a little baby, right? And they snuggle up on your chest, and they're just warm and cozy, and you have all of these chemicals going through your body that are so healthy and loving. Serotonin is skyrocketing. That is safety, okay? Safety for your body. And when your body is in that safe mode, it is so ready to change however you want it to change. It does take, it does feel it might feel stressful. I'm going to say feel versus actually biologically stressful. It may feel stressful when you start to shift your brain, because it's new, it's slower, it's, like things are not happening nearly as fast as what you think should be happening. You may not get as much done, quote unquote, done in a day as you're making these shifts, but because the synapses aren't there. It takes me twice as long to brush my teeth with my left hand than my right now. And that's because, those synapses aren't there. But it's very healthy for me, Eventually, that change will feel safe, and I'll be able to pick up my toothbrush and brush my teeth with my left hand. Not a big deal, right? But it takes time for that shift and those changes to happen. So neuroplasticity is the adaptability of your brain. We can teach an old dog new tricks, okay? There are ways to increase neuroplasticity, which is movement, learning something new, those sorts of things. But then the biggest thing is, as you're increasing that neuroplasticity, start to change your habits. Start to think differently. Think with confidence, think with strength, think with courage, think with compassion, those sorts of things, because that is when the subconscious will all start to shift for you. And then your baseline is different, your default is different. You have more grace for yourself. There's just so much that happens when you start to see these breakthroughs. So thank you so much for listening to this little tidbit on neuroplasticity and why it's so important. And just know that, for the most part, and I'm not saying comfort, you guys. I'm not saying comfort. I'm saying safety. If we can create that safe space for ourselves as we're transitioning, as we're trying to transform and build a different lifestyle or a different outcome, a different result of what's going on in our day-to-day, as we do that, this stuff biologically just does its own thing, because it's innate intelligence within us. It's how we're wired, really. And we're going to rewire and wire the direction we want to go versus rewire, which is the neuroplasticity, and wire the old habits back in. So this is a great biohack. It's a great tool to have as you're transitioning and transforming and looking at wanting to feel different in your day-to-day. All right. I ranted long enough. This was great. Thanks for listening. Please share Please share this with anybody who you feel like would benefit from the conversation, and please subscribe to these channels. This is how I connect with you. This is how we can build momentum in this brilliant life that we're having. And I want people to be to feel included in how they want to live their day to day, because there's less of us that are doing this kind of work than people living on autopilot and in scarcity and in a quote unquote hard life, right? This is a movement, and this is a safe space to start thinking differently and living aligned with who you truly are. So, thank you for joining me today. We will see you next time.